The impossible garden. The discovery. Dr. Helena Voss pressed her palm against the observation window, her breath fogging the reinforced glass as she stared at the impossible sight before her. The Andromedian research vessel Quantum Harmony had been orbiting Earth for exactly 47 hours, and in that time, every scientific principle the galaxy held sacred had been systematically destroyed. Captain Theron of the Andromedian Science Corps stood beside her, his crystalline form refracting the dim blue lighting into 1,000 nervous patterns across the walls. "Explain it again," Theron demanded, his voice resonating through the translation matrix with barely contained anxiety. "Explain how they survive in that." Helena didn't blame him for his disbelief. She'd spent the last 2 days running the same calculations, checking the same sensors, and arriving at the same terrifying conclusion. The planet below wasn't just dangerous by galactic standards. It was a certified nightmare world that should have been quarantined and marked with every warning beacon the Confederacy possessed. The toxic atmosphere. Science Officer Krill, a methane-breathing Vestian whose environmental suit hissed with each movement, floated closer to the main display. His 6 eyes cycled through various spectrums as he analyzed the data streaming from their atmospheric probes. "The oxygen concentration is beyond catastrophic," Krill announced, his voice trembling. 21%. That's not an atmosphere. That's an oxidation chamber. It's a slow-burn explosive waiting to ignite. Helena had learned this the hard way during her xenobiology training. Oxygen was one of the most reactive, corrosive elements in the periodic table. Most civilized worlds kept their oxygen levels below 3%, carefully regulated in sealed chambers for industrial purposes only. The idea of breathing it, of having it constantly flowing through living tissue, was the stuff of horror stories told to young science cadets. The water revelation. But the oxygen wasn't even the worst part. Ambassador Quell of the Harmony Council had nearly shut down entirely when the water analysis came back. His gelatinous form had literally frozen in its containment sphere, something Helena had never seen in 15 years of interspecies diplomacy. "They drink it," Quell whispered, his words bubbling through his translation membrane. "They actually consume dihydrogen monoxide. Voluntarily." The room fell silent except for the constant hum of the ship's quantum drives. Water was classified as a universal solvent throughout the known galaxy, a substance so aggressive it could break down almost any molecular structure given enough time. The fact that it existed in liquid form on Earth's surface, covering 70% of the planet, had initially led the survey team to classify the world as chemically hazardous and uninhabitable. First Contact Protocol. Yet, the signals were unmistakable. The planet below was teeming with technological civilization. Radio waves, satellite networks, atmospheric craft, all the hallmarks of a spacefaring species on the cusp of achieving faster-than-light capability. The Confederacy's first contact protocols were clear. Any species approaching FTL threshold must be evaluated and, if suitable, invited to join the galactic community. But how could they make contact with beings who lived in conditions that would kill 99% of known life forms within minutes? Dr. Helena had volunteered for the away mission despite the protests of the entire command crew. As the expedition's chief xenobiologist and one of only 3 crew members with experience in extreme environment protocols, she understood the risks better than anyone. Her environmental suit was triple reinforced, equipped with enough filtration systems to theoretically survive a swim in molten lead. She'd need every one of those systems on the planet below. The descent. The landing craft shuddered as it entered Earth's atmosphere, and Helena watched the external temperature gauges climb to levels that made her skin crawl beneath her suit. 15 degrees Celsius at the landing site. That was actually cold by the standards of most inhabited worlds, where temperatures rarely dropped below 40 degrees. But for a planet absolutely saturated with reactive oxygen and corrosive water vapor, it was simply another layer of insanity. Captain Theron's voice crackled through her helmet communicator. "Dr. Voss, our remote sensors have identified a human settlement near your landing coordinates. Population approximately 8 million individuals. I must again stress that we can extract you at the first sign of danger." Helena smiled despite her nervousness. "I'll be fine, Captain. The suit has been tested in environments far more extreme than this." Even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. No environment in the Confederacy's database compared to Earth. The closest analog was the toxic moon of Helix Prime, where the atmosphere was so corrosive that it had dissolved 3 survey probes before they'd even reached the surface. But Helix Prime was lifeless. Earth was covered in biological organisms, trillions upon trillions of them, all apparently thriving in conditions that violated every principle of xenobiology. First steps on Earth. The landing craft touched down in what the human databases called a park, a designated green space within the human settlement of New Seattle. Helena's boots made contact with actual soil, dirt mixed with organic matter and teeming with microscopic life forms that her suit's sensors screamed warnings about. She took 3 careful steps forward, her movements slow and deliberate, expecting at any moment for the atmosphere to breach her suit's defenses. Nothing happened. The suit held. The filtration systems hummed efficiently, converting the toxic oxygen into a breathable methane mixture her lungs could process. Around her, the park was bizarrely beautiful in its lethality. Tall organisms the humans called trees reached toward the sky, their leaves performing the impossible act of photosynthesis using direct, unfiltered solar radiation. Water, actual liquid water, bubbled from a decorative fountain nearby, exposed to the open air as if it were the most natural thing in the galaxy. The human arrival. That's when she saw them. 3 humans approaching from a paved pathway, their bodies completely unprotected from the hostile environment. They wore only thin fabric coverings, what her cultural database identified as casual clothing. No environmental suits, no breathing apparatus, not even basic radiation shielding. Just bare skin exposed to the oxygen-rich atmosphere, eyes unprotected from the solar radiation, lungs drawing in breath after breath of the corrosive air. The lead human, a female with dark hair tied back from her face, raised one hand in what the database assured Helena was a friendly greeting gesture. "Hello," the human called out, her voice carrying easily through the toxic atmosphere. "You must be from the ship we've been tracking. Welcome to Earth. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, representing the United Nations First Contact Committee." Helena activated her suit's external speakers, her voice translated into the human language called English. "I am Dr. Helena Voss of the Andromedian Confederacy. I must warn you that your environment is extremely hazardous. Please maintain a safe distance until we can establish proper containment protocols." The 3 humans looked at each other with expressions Helena's translation software identified as confusion mixed with amusement. The shocking truth. Dr. Chen stepped closer, now only 3 meters away. "Hazardous? You mean our atmosphere? It's actually a beautiful day. Temperature's perfect, humidity's low, and the air quality index is excellent." She took a deep, demonstrative breath, filling her lungs with the deadly oxygen. Helena's suit alarms screamed warnings about the proximity of an unprotected organism in a toxic environment. "You're breathing pure oxygen," Helena said, her voice strained with disbelief. 21% concentration. That level of oxidative exposure should be destroying your cellular structure. The free radicals alone should be causing catastrophic DNA damage. Sarah Chen smiled, and Helena noticed for the first time the complete lack of concern in the human's expression. "Oh, we have antioxidants for that. Our bodies produce them naturally. Plus, we need the oxygen for cellular respiration. It's how we generate energy." She gestured to the fountain. "Would you like some water? You must be thirsty after your journey." The casual offer to consume what was essentially industrial solvent nearly made Helena stumble backward. This wasn't just a species adapted to extreme conditions. These were beings who had somehow evolved to not just survive but thrive in an environment that should be classified as a chemical warfare testing ground. As she watched Sarah Chen walk barefoot across the grass, breathing deeply of the toxic air, drinking from a bottle of pure water, Helena realized that everything the Confederacy thought it knew about the limits of biological possibility was about to be rewritten. The revelation. Above, on the quantum harmony, Captain Theron was receiving the same data feeds Helena was transmitting, and his crystalline form had shifted to the deep purple of existential crisis. The implications were staggering. If humans could survive in such conditions naturally, what else were they capable of? What other impossibilities did their biology allow? The first contact mission had just become far more complicated than anyone had anticipated. The bacterial nightmare. The medical emergency. Exactly 18 hours after first contact, the true horror of Earth's nature revealed itself in the sterile confines of the Quantum Harmony's medical bay. Lieutenant Dravex of the Vestian Diplomatic Corps lay writhing in his containment pod, his chitinous exoskeleton turning from healthy blue to a sickly gray. Dr. Helena stood over him, her hands trembling as she read the medical scanner results for the 5th time, hoping desperately that the previous 4 readings had been errors. They weren't. Bacterial infection, she announced to the assembled medical team, her voice barely above a whisper. Confirmed exposure to Earth-origin microorganisms. Approximately 15,000 different strains detected in his respiratory system alone. The medical bay erupted in controlled panic. Chief Medical Officer Zenith, whose species had evolved in the sterile environments of deep space habitats, began cycling through decontamination protocols with desperate speed. Understanding the contamination. Dravex had made a critical error during the second contact session with the humans. He'd removed his helmet for exactly 47 seconds to demonstrate good faith and trust. 47 seconds of breathing Earth's atmosphere. That was all it had taken. Now his body was being invaded by an army of microscopic organisms that shouldn't exist in such numbers, hunting through his system with terrifying efficiency. How is this possible? Zenith demanded, his 4 hands flying across the medical controls. Our databases show Earth as having bacterial concentrations approximately 10,000 times higher than any inhabited world in the Confederacy. We classified it as a biohazard zone. Why would the humans choose to live in such contamination? Helena pulled up the atmospheric analysis on the main display, and the numbers made her feel sick. The invisible threat. Earth's air wasn't just oxygen-rich. It was absolutely teeming with microorganisms. Every cubic meter of atmosphere contained millions of bacteria, fungal spores, and viral particles. The humans called it normal. They called it healthy. They had evolved in this soup of biological chaos, their immune systems locked in constant warfare with an invisible army of invaders. Request immediate communication with the human medical representative, Helena ordered. If we don't understand how they survive this, Dravex will be dead within 6 hours. The communication channel opened, and Dr. Sarah Chen's face appeared on the screen. She was in what appeared to be a human medical facility, surrounded by other humans who were working without any protective equipment whatsoever. The casual disregard for basic contamination protocols made Helena's skin crawl. Dr. Voss, we received your distress signal. What can we do to help? Sarah asked, her expression genuinely concerned. The impossible explanation. Helena quickly explained Dravex's condition, the bacterial invasion, the rapid deterioration of his systems. As she spoke, she watched Sarah's expression shift from concern to understanding to something that looked almost like embarrassment. Oh no, Sarah said softly. We should have warned you about our microbial load. I'm sorry. We're so used to it that we didn't think to mention it during the initial contact briefings. She turned to someone off-screen and spoke rapidly in English. Another human appeared, this one wearing what Helena recognized as medical attire. This is Dr. James Rodriguez, our chief immunologist, Sarah introduced. He can explain what's happening. James leaned closer to the camera, his eyes serious. Dr. Voss, humans exist in what we call a microbiome relationship with bacteria. We don't just tolerate them. We need them. The average human body contains approximately 37 trillion bacterial cells. That's more bacterial cells than human cells. The shocking reality. The medical bay fell absolutely silent. Helena felt her legs go weak, and she had to grip the edge of the console to stay upright. "You're telling me," she said slowly, "that every human is essentially a walking colony of bacteria? That you're outnumbered by foreign organisms in your own bodies?" James nodded as if this were the most natural thing in the galaxy. "Exactly. We have bacteria in our digestive systems that help us process food. Bacteria on our skin that protect us from harmful microorganisms. Bacteria in our mouths, our respiratory systems, even in our blood. Without them, we'd die." Captain Theron, who had been observing from the bridge, activated his communicator. "This is madness. You're describing a parasitic infestation, not a symbiotic relationship. How do you maintain individual identity when you're composed primarily of foreign organisms?" Sarah rejoined the conversation. "It's not parasitic, Captain. It's mutualistic. We feed them, they help us survive. In fact, we've discovered that humans raised in overly sterile environments often develop severe health problems. We need the microbial exposure to train our immune systems." "The treatment dilemma." Dr. Zenith interrupted, his voice urgent. "Fascinating as this biology lesson is, Lieutenant Dravex is dying. Can you help us or not?" James pulled up his own medical displays. "The problem is that Dravex's immune system has never encountered Earth bacteria before. He has no antibodies, no defense mechanisms, no beneficial microbiome to compete with the invasive strains. His body is treating this like a full-scale invasion, which technically it is." Helena watched the monitors showing Dravex's vital signs continuing to deteriorate. "What do we do? Our antimicrobial treatments are designed for sterile world pathogens. We don't have anything that can combat this level of bacterial load without killing the patient." Sarah and James exchanged glances, clearly communicating something without words. Finally, Sarah spoke. "We have a possible solution, but you're not going to like it. We need to introduce beneficial human microbiome bacteria to compete with the harmful strains. Essentially, we need to colonize Dravex with Earth-origin organisms that won't harm him." The desperate decision. The suggestion was met with immediate protests from every member of the Confederacy medical team. The idea of deliberately introducing more Earth bacteria into an already infected crew member violated every medical protocol in existence. But as Helena watched Dravex's condition continue to spiral, she realized they were out of options. "Do it," she ordered, overriding the protests. "Prepare the treatment." The human medical team worked with impressive efficiency, assembling what they called a probiotic treatment specifically designed for non-human biology. They modified beneficial bacteria strains, tested them against samples of Dravex's tissue, and prepared an introduction protocol that would be as gentle as possible on his overwhelmed system. 6 hours later, the treatment began. Helena watched the monitors with a mixture of hope and dread as trillions of modified Earth bacteria were introduced into Dravex's body. The miraculous recovery. The first hour showed no change. The second hour brought a slight stabilization. By the third hour, something remarkable was happening. The beneficial bacteria were establishing colonies, competing with the harmful strains for resources, and producing compounds that supported Dravex's cellular function rather than attacking it. By hour 6, his vital signs had improved significantly. By hour 12, he was conscious and complaining about the taste in his mouth. Dr. James appeared on the communication screen, looking tired but satisfied. "The treatment is working better than we expected. Dravex's immune system is learning to work with the beneficial bacteria rather than fighting everything indiscriminately. He'll need to maintain the microbiome for the rest of his life, but he should make a full recovery." Helena slumped in her chair, the tension of the last day finally catching up with her. "Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. You saved his life." The new understanding. James smiled. "Actually, the bacteria saved his life. We just facilitated the introduction. This is something humans learned a long time ago. We can't fight against Earth's microbial nature. We have to work with it." As the communication ended, Helena stared at the medical displays showing Dravex's body now hosting billions of Earth-origin bacteria. He was no longer purely Vestian. He was something new, something changed by exposure to Earth's impossible biology. Captain Theron's voice came through her communicator. Dr. Voss, the Council is demanding a full report on this incident. They're considering classifying Earth as a Class X biohazard world and recommending immediate quarantine protocols. Helena understood the impulse. Everything about Earth violated the Confederacy's understanding of safe, habitable environments. But as she thought about the humans walking freely in their bacteria-filled atmosphere, thriving in conditions that should kill them, she realized that maybe the problem wasn't Earth. Maybe the problem was that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten what real life looked like. The broader implications. Over the next several days, the medical team continued monitoring Dravex's recovery while conducting extensive research into Earth's microbial environment. What they discovered was both terrifying and fascinating. Earth's bacterial diversity was approximately 1 million times greater than the most biodiverse world in the Confederacy. The humans existed in a state of constant biological warfare, their immune systems fighting off trillions of potential invaders every single day. But that constant warfare had made them strong. Human immune systems could identify and respond to threats with a speed and efficiency that put Confederate medical technology to shame. They had evolved mechanisms to distinguish between beneficial and harmful microorganisms, to maintain balance rather than sterility, to adapt to new biological challenges with remarkable flexibility. They're not just surviving in a hazardous environment, Dr. Zenith observed during one of their research sessions. They're using that environment to make themselves stronger. The constant microbial exposure is training their bodies to handle threats that would overwhelm any of us. The final revelation. Helena realized then that Earth's designation as a death world might be accurate, but not in the way the Confederacy had assumed. It wasn't a death world because nothing could survive there. It was a death world because everything that survived there became extraordinarily resilient, adapted to handle challenges that would destroy species from safer, more controlled environments. The implications were staggering. If Earth's bacteria could be integrated into Confederacy medical practices, if human immune system principles could be applied to other species, the potential for advancement was unlimited. But it would require overcoming millions of years of evolution toward sterility, toward controlled environments, toward safety over adaptation. As Helena prepared her report for the Council, she chose her words carefully. Earth was dangerous, yes. But perhaps danger wasn't something to be avoided at all costs. Perhaps the real lesson here was that life didn't just survive in challenging conditions. It thrived because of them.